Welcome to the Believeland Prep Podcast, brought to you by Michael DeLazo & Co., CPAs, business advisors. Contact them at cpaneeds.com. I'm your host, Cameron Palmer. Back with me again, Derek Dimmitt, and our special guest, the Godfather, the founder, creator, owner, whatever you want to call him, Kevin Sledz. Kevin and Derek, how are we doing so far?
Doing good. Appreciate you guys having me on for a little bit here to talk some Portage County high school football.
Appreciate you giving me a job.
Yeah. Doing pretty good, Cameron. Great for week 6. It's hard to believe that we're past the halfway point already for high school football, but here we are.
I can't believe a year ago I was prepping for a week 6 high school football game as a player. Probably about this time, I probably just got out of practice and was probably like, oh, I can't move. Probably sitting in my truck in the driveway like, I don't want to get out. Dreading school the next day. But here I am now covering the kids who are doing the exact same thing that I did a year ago. So, Kevin, I know you're on to talk some Portage County football. Obviously, you cover that about as closely as anybody. So we'll let you go ahead and take this so you can get on your way.
All right. So the 2 games I covered last week, we had a special Thursday night game. Crestwood Red Devils faced the Beechwood Bison. Had a kind of a unique situation. Beechwood, I think, dressed only like 17 kids. So the coaches kind of got together before the game and decided on a running clock from the beginning, which you don't normally see until another team's up by 30 points. So it was a quick game, but Crestwood ended up winning 38-7. What a game from Nate Blasio, our week 4 player of the week for Division 5-7. 16 carries, 291 yards, and 5 touchdowns. So he was pretty much the entire offense. I mean, it was pretty much hand it to Nate and go. So he accounted for all their points, and it was an incredible performance for sure. And then Friday night I was in Ravenna to see Streetsboro for the first time, and they took it to Ravenna 56-7. You know, Streetsboro is one of the top teams in the county this year. Ravenna's kind of been a rebuilding year. You know, they're got a lot of young kids, but Streetsboro, Preston Hopper. He's a name that everybody knows if you follow Portage County sports. He had 8 rushes, 96 yards, and a couple touchdowns, and added 4 receptions for 157 yards and another touchdown. So a great game by him. And the other running back had 93 yards on 3 carries, Kylon Rue, and 2 touchdowns, which is crazy. He had a couple big runs. But Streetsboro took that one, as I said. Yep, sometimes it is. He's fast too. So that brings us to player of the week for week 5. We got another Portage County kid. Yeah, it was a tough decision. There were some really good candidates, but this week it's going to go to Keegan Sell, running back / linebacker from the Garfield G-Men. Last week against Champion, in only one half of football, 5 carries, 125 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And on the defense, where he's just a beast, 12 tackles, 2 tackles for a loss, 2 forced fumbles, and 1 big-time hit on special teams. I don't know if you guys saw the video, but it was.
I've seen it all over Twitter. Yeah, I've seen it. That was something special. Hey, you know, they say special teams is just as important as your offense and your defense, and I think that is definitely one of those things that, you know, a good punt, you put a team inside their 5, basically can immediately kill a drive when you needed the absolute most. So special teams is just as important as anything else that you can have on a football field. So, yeah, it was a big hit, and just the kind of mentality that they bring. They had some against Cardinal week 1. Obviously, I haven't seen them since. I know you've seen them a number of times since then, so I know you can vouch for them more than I can. But, yeah, good. They're looking good, as always.
Yeah, so continuing on with the G-Men. So in 5 games this year, they've put up 261 points and allowed only 52. And 26 of those came to Warren JFK. They shut out Cardinal and Champion. So that's, 261 points in 5 games is crazy. And they've definitely got it going offensively and defensively both. So they've got a shot. They've got a shot to go run the table and make a deep run in the postseason. And I'll actually be there this Friday. It's their homecoming against Campbell Memorial. So I'll be there covering that one. But to talk about
it seems that a lot of teams have homecoming this week. Chardon has their homecoming as well.
Yeah, I think it's a big week. Yes, it is. It's flying by. But they're not the only undefeated team. Ritztown is also 5-0. They have actually Southeast and Ritztown are 5-0, and they meet in week 9. So Ritztown has Southeast and then Mogador week 9 and 10. So that's going to be a tough final 2 games of the regular season. Then you look at Southeast; they have week 8 at Mogador, and then week 9 against Ritztown. So they're both undefeated, but they both have a couple tough games coming up and play each other. So I'm looking forward to covering that one as well. But also, we mentioned Streetsboro. They're 4-1. Their only loss is to an undefeated Norton team who's very good. So they're having a great season. Crestwood, after losing their opener, to Ritztown, have rolled off 4 straight. And Coach D'Amato's got them playing some good ball. Those sophomores from last year are really developing as juniors this year, and it's starting to show. And then Wyndham, I did a preview for Wyndham. They had a bunch of guys out, a bunch of key guys hurt, and so I didn't get to see a lot of them. And the first 3 games of the season, they were still missing a lot of guys. And Jack Guy, who's one of their top players, got hurt in that first game. The scrimmage before their first game. Did not play the first 3 games, but he's been back the last 2, and they've rolled off 2 wins in a row. So they're starting to build some momentum for that second half now that they're getting healthy. And then Mogador is 4-1. They're doing their thing. They're good every year. I know Cameron just covered the game against the Columbus Crusaders where they really took it to them. So Mogador, they're always there at the top. And then wrapping it up with the
a lot of.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say a lot of Mogador kids scored in that game. I really didn't. Obviously, I didn't have much expectations going into it, being unfamiliar with them. But I mean, I think almost everybody who played offense probably got a touch and probably almost found their way into the end zone. So definitely one thing to look out for if you're an opposing team in the coming weeks. There's not one guy you have to key on. There's 7-8 guys you got to make sure you key on them and you game plan for whatever Mogador is going to have for them to set them up to score. Because everything they wanted to do worked, and Columbus couldn't really do much to halt any Mogador drives. But Columbus is a good story, which we'll get into obviously once me and Derek talk about our week 5 recaps. But continue.
Yeah, like I said, Mogador is always tough, and Coach Adorny, he's a legendary coach there, and he's always got those kids playing good ball. So before I get into the state rankings, computer rankings that came out this week, through 5 weeks, we have 2,000-yard rushers already in Portage County. Nate Blasio eclipsed the 1,000-yard mark. He's at 1,090 yards, which he told me during the season preview, his goal was 2,000 yards, so he's definitely on pace for it. And then Dawson Morgan from Rootstown is having an incredible season. He's at 1,209 yards through 5 games. Now, last year, our small school player of the year was Cody Kuntz, the running back from Rootstown, and he rushed for over 2,300 yards. But Dawson Morgan right now is on pace to eclipse that mark, which is incredible because Cody had an incredible season last year. But, yeah, 1,209 yards in 5 games. So that shows you how well
right.
Yeah, it's right. It's 100% right.
Oh my God. That's something different. He better be feeding his offensive lineman every Saturday morning.
Oh yeah.
He better be pancake breakfast every morning.
Yep. Always got to give the credit to the big guys up front.
100%. They do the unappreciative work, but yes, that's
do.
Crazy.
And then wrap it up with the state computer rankings that came out this week. Some of the top teams in Portage where they're ranked. Division 4, Region 13. Streetsboro is at number 6. Of course, the top 16 in each region make the playoffs. They changed that back in the COVID year. And used to be 8, but now it's 16, and they've kind of stuck with it. Division 5, Region 17, we've got 2. Garfield comes in at number 6, and then Crestwood at number 11. And then Division 6, Region 21, we've got 3 teams. Rootstown, number 1. Number 6 is Southeast, and then 7 is Mogador. So that's the upper-ranked Portage teams for this first state rankings. I'm sure things will change the last 5 weeks, but that's where we stand right now.
Portage County's breeding them right, I guess.
Yeah,
whatever they're doing, they got to keep it. They got to keep doing it.
There's some really good teams this year. There's a lot of really good athletes, spread out around the county, and like I said, I'll be at Garfield Campbell this week, and then looking forward to seeing Wyndham against Astubula St. John's next Friday. So that'll be my next 2 weeks. Looking forward to those.
All right, you got anything else for us, or?
No, I think that pretty much wraps it up for Portage.
All right. Did you plan on staying around for the rest of it, or were you gonna hop off?
I'm probably gonna hop off. I don't want to distract you guys.
Oh, that's fine. Hey, man.
I don't want you feeling the pressure of the boss watching over you.
The boss man.
I might prefer that. I might start getting off track a little bit. I do, anyways. I mean, I get talking about this stuff that it just rolls through my brain all the time. I ramble on and on and on, and I got to find myself back on track. But nope, we appreciate you coming on. Probably not the last time we'll have you on. So not the end of the podcast, but thank you, Kevin Sledz, the owner, the godfather of this Believeland Media LLC, and the guy who handed the reins. He ran it last year with Joe Yule, who's now the OC at Cardinal High School. And he handed the reins to me and Derek this year. We're honored, and we hope that we can keep this one rolling for a whole school year worth of high school sports. I think we're doing all right, and I'm excited for what the future of this podcast holds and just the future of this company that you are doing a really good job of running. So thank you so much for joining us. We plan on having you on again before it's all said and done. So thank you so much.
Yeah, anytime you want me on, and appreciate the kind words, and thank you to our sponsor as well for supporting the podcast. But all right, I'll bow out now and let you guys finish the show.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted him to try and say the name,
yeah,
but he didn't.
I think he was getting ready to, and then he's like, "I'm gonna butcher this. I'm dropping off."
Yeah, no, honestly, if it wasn't a name I was familiar with, I would probably butcher it just as bad as anybody else. So I covered 3 games this week. I believe you had your fair share as well. I'll let you go ahead and get started with where you were and where you will be this week.
Yes. So, like Kevin, I had a Thursday special. Headed up to Twinsburg as they welcomed Hudson down the road, or up the road rather. Hudson to Twinsburg, up 91, and it was Ian Ludwig. He returned. He was injured, missed about a game and a half, but he came back. Admitted after the game he's probably not 100%, but you wouldn't guess it by watching him. He, over 100 yards, just doing what he does. Hudson looks like a well-oiled machine. I'm sure we'll be hearing from them as we get closer to the playoffs and in the playoffs. Then Friday, I had Glen Oak and Hoover. I've been at Hoover's 2 losses, so I think if I show up at another Hoover game, the coach will probably chase me out of the stadium. So I hope that doesn't happen. But Glen Oak, they entered the game 1-3, but they've played some very tough teams, including Massillon, that we'll talk about here in a few minutes. But yeah, a lot better than what their record shows. One of probably their best player, Avante Burt, had on the first play from scrimmage, 81 yards to the house on a jet sweep. And then on the next drive, suffered what looked to be a lower body injury. Didn't get an update during the game or after, but he did not return. So definitely hope that he heals up and is able to get back out there. He's one of the premier talents in Stark County. Just a phenomenal athlete all the way around. And then on Saturday, I went up to the college ranks and headed to Kent State as they welcomed Central Connecticut State for their home opener. And they did what they were supposed to do, playing an FCS opponent, welcomed them in, got scored early and often, was able to bring in some of the subs in the later parts of the game, and that's when Central Connecticut was able to put some points on the board. But all in all, a great game. Coach Kenny Burns and the team, they're heading west this weekend. They have a 10:30 local time kickoff out at Fresno State. So I have a Mount Union game to cover in the afternoon and then hopefully get a nap so I can try to make it up for that Kent State game and talk to Coach Burns post game, probably around 1:30 in the morning here locally. So pour the coffee and give me a nap Saturday afternoon. And
Guess
we
so.
all about Alec, or we talked to Alec earlier this week. There's a big Buckeyes game this evening or this Saturday evening as well. So big Saturday here locally. But yeah, this week I'll be covering one high school game that is um, Middletown, Delaware. They're coming to face Massillon. Massillon off of a humongous victory over St. Ed's. It catapulted them into number one spot for Division Two, taking down that D1 powerhouse that is St. Ed's. We've talked about Ed's pretty much every week that we've covered them. Marshawn was in Massillon last week. He wrote a great article breaking down that one. The only thing I'm concerned is Massillon going to be looking past the Middletown, Delaware team that comes to town. They come to town 3-0, but they did play Massillon last year here in Ohio, and they lost by 2 or 3 touchdowns. So this is a team, despite being out of state, Massillon does have a history with. So it'll be interesting to see how this shakes out this Friday. And then, as I just mentioned, along with the Kent State game that I'll be tuning in to, it's on CBS Sports Net this weekend for that late kickoff. I'll be at the Mount Union home opener as they welcome the Muskingum Muskies. That's one of the funner nicknames in sports, the Muskies of Muskingum.
I like that.
Yeah, they come up to Alliance T-Care Stadium on the campus of the University of Mount Union. That game kicks off at 1:30. We'll have the coverage here on Believeland, thanks to Sky High Fitness here in Alliance. A great company ran by Mount Union grad and Daryl Sullins. Great guy. Very excited to get the Mount Union coverage officially on the roll. I have wrote a couple quick recaps of their away games, but it's a lot different being there and getting to see the game out of your own eyes and not just basing it off of a box score or other people's accounts of the game.
Right.
But yeah, that's a quick rundown of me. I'll toss it over to you, Cameron. And you want to talk football or you want to touch on your volleyball coverage that you've had so far this week? And I know you got a big one tomorrow night as well.
So starting with yesterday, the Berkshire Badgers and the Cardinal Huskies renewed the volleyball rendition of the Kinsman Cup. If you are unfamiliar with the Kinsman Cup, both teams are located, well, Cardinal being in Middlefield, they take 87 west to Burton, and then, well, now with the new school, you go down North Cheshire Street, I believe, down to the new high school, which is right next to Kent State Geauga. Berkshire will travel to east on 87 to Cardinal yesterday. A good student section from Cardinal, not so much from Berkshire, but I believe it'll be a whole different story when it is in their home gym, which I do plan on being at. It is here in a couple weeks. I'm looking forward to it, unless that there is something that I haven't seen yet that is bigger to me than that, which we'll get to when we get there. That's still a couple weeks away. I'm not even past this week yet. So Cardinal gets swept by rival Burton 3-0. Cardinal made it interesting in the third set, leading for the most part throughout it. Berkshire called their only timeouts of the night in the third set, and one kind of later on just to regroup and let's get out of here in 3, which I believe Maddie Smetana alluded to in the post-game interview. If you had not read that recap or watched the interviews yet, go check that out on Believeland Media's website, as well as all of our socials for the interview videos. They're doing pretty well. I think they were all right interviews. Obviously, hard to hear in a gym, but I think the ladies did a fine job answering the questions, and it was a pleasure to see Coach Protz again. So shout out to them. I always appreciate them welcoming me, as they do everybody else. Anyways, it was kind of the Berkshire show through the first 2 sets. Maddie Smetana really dominated, 17 kills. She had 12 digs. I want to give huge props to Marissa Risch. She had like 20s. Oh god, it escapes me at the moment. It was an insane amount of assists and digs to complement. I think 7 kills, aiding her team to a victory. Pull this up real quick so I can uh, make this right. I apologize. They were able to win it.
It always makes me laugh though. Like you're talking volleyball, and then you're like, "Oh, 7 kills!" Like, what a serial killer! Like,
it's bump set spike. You spike it, but the stat is a kill. So that's whatever.
So violent for a game played by young ladies, like and young men now. There's quite a few schools, especially at
that is
level, that have intercollegiate men's teams. But as you were,
yes. No, you are okay. Maddie Smetana, 17 kills, 12 digs, as I alluded to. Marissa had 26 assists, 12 digs, and 7 kills. She set up Maddie and Kirsten Schaefer a bunch, also setting up Maddie's sister Jillian Smetana as well. She had a number of kills. Caitlin Miller had 2 aces and 20 digs. Her and Marissa Rich just, doing the kind of unappreciative work in a way, the stuff that it does show up on the stat sheet, but it doesn't score points. So shout out to them, doing what's most important, keeping the ball alive and setting up her hitters to spike and kill, I suppose, to lead them to a victory. So a big win for them. They travel to Grand Valley on Thursday for another CVC matchup, and Cardinal will take a bus ride to Manaway to face the Crestwood Red Devils on Thursday. And speaking of Thursday, the Kenston Bombers will host the East Lake North Rangers in a huge WRC battle. The East Lake North Rangers sit at 8-2. The Bombers now sit at 8-3, following a sweeping of the Chardon Hilltoppers on Tuesday, which is something I'm looking forward to on Friday on the Gridiron. We'll get to that here shortly. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to be excited to see Christian Jolly again. I haven't seen him since the season preview, and it hit me. I'm like, hey, I haven't done a Kenston volleyball game yet, and I know he's been looking forward to it. I sent him my season preview, and he complimented it, so I'm looking forward to being back out there to see them and be welcomed by another group of high school athletes and coaches, as I feel I am just about everywhere that I go, which is always a good feeling. So as far as football goes, the Kenston Bombers, something I talked about last week, the possible upset that could have been, it happened, but maybe not in the fashion that it did. Kenston loses to the Lake Catholic Cougars, who moved to 4-1, 49-14. Kenston falls to 4-1 as they prep for the Chardon Hilltoppers on Friday, which, if there's any time to get that slap in the face and, let's snap back to reality, it is 100% the week before you play probably your biggest game to this point before you face Riverside in week 8. So I think Grubich is going to have them right. They're going to get ready. They're going to be ready. But the mistakes that they made have to be cleaned up. And I'd like to believe that Grubich is going to have that cleaned up. Lucas Kaltenbach, I had alluded to it last week. If he threw interceptions, it was going to be hard for them to win. And he did that. He threw a pick 6. And on their opening drive, threw one just near the red zone. He threw an interception around their 15-yard line, a place where you really can't turn the ball over. It's fine if you get to the goal line and you're unable to convert on third down. Maybe you live with a field goal, but your opening drive can't end with an interception, especially against a team that is explosive as Lake Catholic. I want to give a shout-out to Lake Catholic. Frankie Trinetti, 21 of 27 passing, 302 passing yards, and 4 passing touchdowns. A legacy game, if you could call it something, I believe, for a high school student. Obviously, the Division 4 Lake Catholic Cougars upsetting the Division 3 juggernaut-ish of the Kenston Bombers. It's a huge win. It's one that I know Marty Gibbons is going to be – they're going to be rolling off of that into Canton Central Catholic this Friday or Saturday, I believe, one of the two. Just a big – like I said, a legacy game, just kind of across the board for everybody. DJ Sears, a phenomenal night, 5 receptions, 90 yards, and he caught 3 of Trinitti's 4 passing touchdowns. He also rushed for a touchdown earlier on in the game. And Cross Nemo, I had mentioned him being named a 3-star last week. I mentioned it in the interview. Again, if you have not read that recap, go check it out. Some good highlights. I got a really pretty shot of Kenston with their backs to the sunset. I was in the back of the end zone, and Sean Patrick scored one of Kenston's 2 touchdowns. Cohen Clark scored the other one on the ground. Just a pretty shot. I think the way that their field set up, I didn't realize how nice it would be. It was very nice. I'm not going to lie. I was kind of drooling over it. Almost forgot I was watching a football game. Cross Nemo, 3 receptions, 129 yards, and a touchdown. That height, it's hard to stop. He's huge. I mean, honestly, as well as he took one of his catches 76 yards to the house. I think that was after DJ Sears scored their first touchdown, and then they came back and scored off of that. And I think the big play just sucked them on. It really sucked the life out of Bomber Stadium. The Kenston did get on the board to make it 14-7 with Sean Patrick's score, but Kaltenbach in the red zone again threw a 94-yard pick six, and at that moment it was like, wow. Ending the half down 35-7, and 2 more touchdowns in the second half from Lake Catholic put that one to bed. Cohen Clark did get on the board, like I mentioned, but kind of the wake-up call that I think Kenston needed, and now that they have it, I think that Gilbert has probably had them has been breathing down their necks, locking in on film to fix their mistakes that, really cost them a win. One that I don't want to say that they needed, but it's always good to get a win no matter who it's against. My next game, St. Vincent St. Mary's, the alma mater of the great LeBron James, took on the NDCL. I was just gonna say their full name. The NDCL Lions. A good game from St. Vincent St. Mary's, shutting out NDCL 35-0. Ryan Hurley, I apologize, went 13 of 15 passing, 200 passing yards, and 1 passing touchdown. He also had 3 attempts for 59 yards and a rushing touchdown. Donald Johnson Jr. had a phenomenal night on the ground, 13 attempts, 111 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And then Danny Wildman had 3 catches, 45 yards, and a touchdown. And then Sir Charles Gordon, despite not hitting pay dirt, he went 5 receptions for 59 yards. A really good offensive game all around. They split their total yards of offense, 200 to 200 passing and rushing. So a very good balanced attack that paid off in the end. And then my final game of the week, as Kevin mentioned, I traveled to Mogador. The long hour drive was fun. I was wondering how it was going to be going through Kent after they had just played their game. I was wondering how bad it was going to be. It was not bad at all. I think I got there kind of perfectly to be able to avoid all the crazy traffic. So Mogador. First, before I get into it, I want to tell the story of the Columbus Crusaders. It's a really cool story. So this game does not count towards OHSAA playoffs because Columbus Crusaders, they are like a club team. And so I spoke with their head coach, and he's a very nice guy. It was a pleasure to meet him. I hope I get to cover him and their team later on. Maybe next year. Obviously, the trip to Columbus is not as appeasing as it sounds, unless it's like a state championship game. Obviously, it's a team full of homeschooled kids who are not comfortable playing high school football for whatever school district that they attend, and for kids whose school districts do not have sports programs. So a really, really good story. I give kudos to that whole coaching staff, the kids, the families. I wish them the absolute best, and I really hope that, these kids enjoy playing football, because I feel like for some of them it's not all about what the scoreboard says. I think it's just that they get to play football, and at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. So I can appreciate that. Obviously, being a high school football athlete, I can appreciate the love of playing the game and the ability to play the game. I think that's awesome. Again, I look forward to covering them maybe next year. If they play Mogador again, I'll have no problem making that trip again. Coach Adorni was a pleasure to meet. Obviously, again, unfamiliar with them, but every relationship starts somewhere. So as far as my week goes, that'll be it from last week. And then Hiram loses another one. The football team loses 49-0 against DePaul on Saturday, but they are home at noon on this Saturday. I will be there against Denison. Looking forward to seeing them again. Hopefully, they can come out with a win. I'll be seeing Hiram Volleyball next week, which we'll get to in about a week. And so, to preview what I would like to think is going to be one of the better games in the area. The preview, I did a preview article for it. Kevin should be posting it soon, so I'm not going to jaw your ear off with it. A lot of key matchups in its storylines, the history of the rivalry. Number 6, Kenston Bombers versus number 12, Chardon Hilltoppers in Chardon Memorial Stadium. Really should be a good one, obviously. Kenston's got some mistakes to clean up after the 35-point loss last week. Chardon lost to the number 4 ranked Division III team in Region 9, 14-10. So they lose another, they lose again, but it's a dogfight. It wasn't a blowout. They let up 14 points to an offense that was averaging 36.5 points coming into it. So that Chardon defense is something real. That Kenston offense is gonna really have to prepare for a really stout Hilltopper defense. So the Hilltopper passing game is beginning to open up more and more. Will Francis completed 9 of 14 passes for, I believe, 70 something yards, which earlier on in the season, something they really didn't do much was pass, but now they're at that point in the season where we got to start opening up the playbook, and we got to show that there is another part of our offense that they need to worry about. 9 of 14 for 72 yards, the single most game attempts and completions to date. Obviously, that is subject to change with still 5 weeks of football left to play. Andrew Bruce, I apologize. Nickname is AJ. 7 carries, 106 yards, and a 68-yard run that set up a Vinny Columbi 1-yard touchdown. Chardon coming off a tough loss, but I think their defense really showed holding a good offensive team to 163 yards to a team that was averaging 200. Or no, I apologize. They out-yarded? They outgained? Something like that. 261 to 163. Okay. Yeah, okay. I want to make sure that I was saying that correctly. They outgained Bishop Watterson. Yes, 261 yards to 163. I apologize. I'm all over the place today. Alexander Ash did not dominate defensively. They really bottled him up. He only had 5 tackles, but he is still having a phenomenal season, sitting at 65 tackles, 41 solo, 11 and a half tackles for loss. He has 25 more tackles than anyone else on his team and 15 more than 15 more solo tackles than anybody else on his team. So he is still having a phenomenal defensive season. Looking forward to seeing what he's going to do against the likes of Sean Patrick and Chloe Clark next week. Again, that preview should be up if it's not already. And when it is, you'll know because you'll see it. So a good matchup, conference matchup. Chardon beat Kenston twice last year, 35-18, in Week 6 in Bomber Stadium, and at Boardman Spartan Stadium, 10-7 in the playoffs. So 2 long-tenured head coaches, 2 state champions within the past 6 to 7 years. So there's a lot of storylines leading into this one, and I'm excited. I'm excited to be welcomed by 2 coaches and players and coaching staffs who are familiar with me to this point of the season. And I'd mentioned Drago Vujiklia's mom last week. I'm excited to see her again. I know she's expecting me on Friday, so I'm excited to be welcomed again. So I'll let you take this one if you have anything else to add before we wrap it up.
Just quick rundown. Kevin mentioned he'll be out at Garfield as they welcome Campbell Memorial this week. Then we have Marshawn Powers. He'll be at Olmsted Falls as they visit Avon in a big game. And he'll also be earlier on Friday in Glenville as John Hay makes that short trip over for that Senate Week battle with Glenville. And then we have Michael Patterson. He'll be at Akron St. Vincent St. Mary as they welcome Walsh Jesuit. And he also has St. Ed's and River Rouge on Saturday. So pretty big weekend again here on Believeland Media. And as always, you can find all of our articles and interviews on the website, believelandmediallc.com. On YouTube, you can subscribe either where you're viewing this. If you view us on YouTube, you can hit subscribe so you get all the podcast episodes and any interview recaps that we have, um, or on Facebook, Twitter, X, what we got, Instagram, TikTok, no Snapchat
No
yet.
Snapchat. Not yet. We're getting there. I promise. Let me run
we
it.
will at some point.
Let me run it.
Yeah. But yeah, a great weekend here again. I don't think we have anything tomorrow for Thursday, but Friday and Saturday
Besides
will
my
be.
volleyball now.
Oh, yep.
Besides
Your
my
volleyball.
volleyball, nope, nothing.
Yep.
Be on the
All just
lookout for next
volleyball.
week.
Yeah.
Be on the
Got a big
lookout for next week.
weekend.
I am loaded, like Thursday or Tuesday through Saturday, and like there's still stuff that I'm gonna miss because I have other,
Yeah.
things that I'm gonna have to cover, which I'm so excited for. It's gonna be a good week. A lot of people I'm gonna get to meet, see, so that's always fun. Anything else before we get this one posted?
I think that's all. We'll talk to you next week to wrap up week 6 of the high school football season and look ahead to week 7 as some of these playoff standings start to even themselves out, and then before long we'll be talking about potential playoff matchups, and it's
Ooh.
getting to the fun time of the high school football season. So be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you can stay up to date. We'll work on getting a guest next week. We'd love to get a player or coach on the podcast just to, you know, get to hear from the horse's mouth, so to speak. But yeah,
Right.
so if you're listening to this and you fit that bill, reach out to Cameron or I or Kevin or whomever is covering the game for Believeland, and we'll try to work that and make that work. And I'll let you wrap us up, Cameron.
Thank you guys so much for watching or listening. As Derek mentioned, follow us on all of your social media platforms. And however you choose to watch or listen to your podcast, this has been the Believeland Prep Podcast presented to you by Michael DeLazel & Co., CPAs and Business Advisors. I'm your host, Cameron Palmer. Again with me, Derek Dimmitt. Thank you to Kevin Sledz for joining us again. Look forward to having him on again later on in the season. And I'm excited for week 6. We'll be talking about week 7 in about a week's time. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening. Peace.